Right, the Ben Simmons situation officially has an update, and it has a lot to do with the Golden State Warriors and how strongly Ben Simmons feels about his current situation with the Philadelphia 76ers. So before we get to the content, just a quick reminder, if you are a follower on Twitter or on Instagram, you have entered to win multiple copies of NBA 2K22 for any console, assuming that you do win. And if not, all you have to do is literally follow me on Instagram or Twitter, and I'm going to be giving multiple copies away to people that follow me on those platforms. If you could also take a moment and slap a like on this like button for the YouTube algorithm, that'd be greatly appreciated because it helps me a lot. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So we've been covering Ben Simmons extensively on this channel, and it's probably one of the most interesting storylines of the entire offseason because initially the Philadelphia 76ers seemed to have given up on Ben Simmons. You remember when Doc Rivers went ahead and said that he doesn't know whether or not Ben Simmons could be a starting point guard for a NBA championship team.
Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become.
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now. So I don't know the answer to that.
The story gets even crazier from here. Ben Simmons, and I don't really blame him for feeling this way, and there's two sides to every coin. I could imagine that Ben Simmons is a little bit disappointed that the Philadelphia 76ers essentially have given up on him as a player, because if you have your head coach saying that you don't know whether or not Ben Simmons could be a starting point guard on a championship team, well, that's not really a great vote of confidence for Ben Simmons. Now, on the flip side, if you look at this from the Philadelphia 76ers perspective, there's two things to take into account here. One, we've already mentioned before how Daryl Morey doesn't typically like players like Ben Simmons. When he acquired James Harden from the OKC Thunder about a decade ago, well, there used to be a time where James Harden would take mid-range jump shots, but Daryl Morey disincentivized that because he is very analytics driven, and he's a firm believer that the best type of jump shot that you could take is the three-pointer. That's the most efficient jump shot, and the more volume you have and the more you convert on the three-point line, the greater your likelihood is of winning a basketball game. Now, that's why he hired Mike D'Antoni, and that's how the Houston Rockets were constructed over the past decade. But to go from a scoring machine like James Harden as your franchise cornerstone to a player that isn't even capable of shooting three-pointers, well, that's literally the inverse of your philosophy, and I don't see Daryl Morey being as analytics driven as he is, really saying, okay, I'm going to change my approach and build around a player that can't even shoot threes. So as a result, I felt like in the very beginning, Ben Simmons could have potentially been traded for James Harden, but obviously that fell through. But at the same time, we know that Daryl Morey at least made an attempt. Now, at the same time, if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, you might be a little bit disappointed because it doesn't seem like Ben Simmons is very motivated to improve his game at all whatsoever. And we cite his basic statistics as clear evidence that he's only made marginal improvements in his game, and he's been very stagnant throughout his entire career. If you look at his advanced statistics, he more or less is the same type of player. As a matter of fact, despite taking defensive strides this year, the analytics and the numbers are arguing that he actually regressed as an overall player, as he was actually a better defensive player in the 2019 to 2020 season than this past year. Now, don't get it twisted. This is not to say that Ben Simmons is a horrible basketball player at all whatsoever, which is what some people are trying to say nowadays. It's the fact that one, his momentum is all the way down currently because of a poor playoff series and the fact that he stagnated as a player throughout his entire NBA career. And two, if you were to trade for him, you're going to be trading based off the assumption that he isn't going to improve as a player any further, and that's driving down his value even more. But the problem the Philadelphia 76ers are having is this is a former #1 overall pick in the 2016 NBA draft draft and a former All-Star. He also made an All-NBA defensive team, so you should at least get something in return for him, right? So the result of all this turmoil and all these issues resulted in the Philadelphia 76ers being offered a trade initially where Malcolm Brogdon and a late first-round pick was offered for Ben Simmons, which the Philadelphia 76ers declined, saying that they wanted an all-star in return. Then, a few weeks ago, the Philadelphia 76ers approached the Toronto Raptors in regards to a deal where the Raptors would do a sign-and trade with Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, and the 4th overall pick in Thursday's NBA draft for Ben Simmons, which would get rejected by the Toronto Raptors. Now, there was only one more trade in addition to this, and it had to do with the Golden State Warriors, where the Sixers would also approach the Golden State Warriors in regards to a deal that would give the Golden State Warriors Ben Simmons if the Warriors sent back Andrew Wiggins, James Wiseman, the number 7 and 14 pick in the NBA draft, and 2 future first-round picks. So obviously the Sixers are just trying to set Ben Simmons' asking price extremely high. It's a negotiation tactic, but clearly that's a huge overpay for a player that has so many question marks surrounding him. So as a result of all this information, Jake Fisher came out and said that Ben Simmons is officially ghosting the Philadelphia 76ers, so according to the report, the Philadelphia 76ers haven't been able to even get in touch with Ben Simmons since his season has ended, and Jake Fisher would say in a podcast that the Philadelphia 76ers haven't been able to really even get in touch with Ben Simmons since the season has ended. Like, there was an intent to have a workout plan or whatever, like in any offseason. That's always kind of been the case, that the Philadelphia 76ers haven't been able to align with a development plan for Ben. That's kind of what Yaron Weitzman wrote at Fox Sports in that big story. It just doesn't sound like there's ever been any movement to come together on the same page to do that, and it hasn't really worked this summer either. And as time went on, that narrative was consistently being pushed, and it was proven to be a true narrative. Ben Simmons hasn't responded to Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons hasn't responded to the Philadelphia 76ers, and that brings us to where we are currently, where Ben Simmons is once again posting videos like this. Via Swish Cultures, practicing three-pointers with Rajon Rondo, which, I'm going to be honest, I am not falling for this again. He does this every single year, and he comes back the same player, so until I see it in the middle of a game, I don't care how many threes he makes in workouts, man. I'm just being honest. But in addition to this, according to Zach Lowe of ESPN, the Golden State Warriors, San Antonio Spurs, and Minnesota Timberwolves are amongst the teams who have discussed a trade for Ben Simmons with varying degrees of interest. The Sixers haven't progressed far with a trade of Simmons, as they likely view him as their path to a trade for Damian Lillard. Simmons appears to be the only all-star player that is truly available via trade, as Lillard and Beal haven't really signaled a preference to be dealt. And the Golden State Warriors have thought long and hard, as there was a report that came out last night where the Golden State Warriors are actually internally divided on the potential fit of Ben Simmons with Draymond Green. And if you think about it, all of this makes sense. The moment I heard Ben Simmons rumors that involved the Golden State Warriors, the question I was asking is, would Ben Simmons be able to play alongside Draymond Green, because they would occupy the same role? Both aren't really known to be the greatest three-point shooters, although Draymond Green would at least make an attempt to shoot threes. He's still a career 32% three-point shooter and shot 27% from three this past year. But the main difference between Draymond and Ben Simmons is what Draymond Green lacks in athleticism, he makes up for with uber confidence and the ability to anchor a defense. There's no confidence issues when it comes to Draymond Green. He'll feel good about himself whether he scores 5 points in a game or 20 points in a game. This brings us to our final report in regards to Ben Simmons, coming from multiple sources. The very first one's coming from Kendrick Perkins, saying that Ben Simmons is not answering the phone calls. He doesn't want to be with the 76ers, and from what I heard, he's willing not not to report to training camp and will go as long as it takes for him to get out of Philly. So this sounds very, very familiar to what I would typically report on Microphone, my NFL channel, because you don't really see a lot of holdouts in NBA training camps. You see a lot of holdouts in NFL training camps, but typically in NFL training camps, it typically has to do with contract disputes. But in this case, Ben Simmons just doesn't want to be a Philadelphia 76er anymore, and apparently he's willing to hold out until the Philadelphia 76ers trade him. In my opinion, the most likely team that is to trade for him will be the Philadelphia 76ers because they have the most assets to trade for Ben Simmons, and they'd probably be the most likely to make a significant move to boost their team as they want to capitalize off of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green's championship window. But the thing is, they're right. How would Ben Simmons fit alongside Draymond Green? Would they play him at the center position? There's a lot of young guys on the Golden State Warriors, and it's not really fair to assume players like Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, and James Wiseman would be enough to make the Golden State Warriors a championship contender. Although, if they're flanked by players like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins is able to fulfill his role properly when the Golden State Warriors are at full strength, well, you're looking at a potential championship contender. So let me know in the comment section down below who's the most likely to trade for Ben Simmons. And aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.